Hey everyone, this is Andy Dowling from the Australian metal band Lord and host of the Andy Social Podcast. And this is my nod to the old school. This podcast series is all about the old school mixtape and compilation, where I get to talk to some of the best in the business about their first introductions to heavy music and what were on those early mixtapes. My Nod to the Old School is brought to you by Lord's brand new album, Fallen Idols, available now through Dominus Records and lord.net.au. For us, Fallen Idols was inspired by that old school mixtape. Whether you love thrash metal, power metal, melodic death, blackened thrash, or even a bit of AOR, Fallen Idols is the ultimate metal mixtape that throws back to the nostalgic past of when we first discovered heavy music, but accompanied by a fresh, modern, world-class production. Here's a quick clip from track 2 of Fallen Idols titled Immortal. Here we are. Episode 2 of My Nod to the Old School is with Jennie Skulander, vocalist from one of New Zealand's biggest rock and metal bands, Devilskin. In this chat, Jennie shares heaps of great stories about growing up in New Zealand, discovering heavy music for the first time, taping songs off the radio, and shares stories about the people who inspired and got her into the music that she still loves today. You can check out Devilskin's latest single, All Fall Down, over at devilskin.co.nz, and the band are currently working on their next album that should be due out sometime in the new year. For everything that we discuss in this episode, including links to Jennie and Devilskin, you can check out the show notes over at lord.net.au or andydowling.net. But for now, this is my chat with Jennie Skulander.
Yeah, I mean, I had a few. It was either recording songs from CD onto a cassette tape or, pretty much recording music from the X Attack radio show, which is Paul Martin, our bass player, his show that he's had for like 30 years. And, so...
Come full circle there.
Catch like ads and stuff, yeah.
That's cool. So what sort of stuff was on those first few tapes that you were putting together?
Pretty much I think it was just me getting into like rock and metal at the time. So I was about sort of 12, 13, but I can recall there's definitely Sugar by System of a Down was on there.
Yeah.
I remember hearing them and just going, what the hell, like these guys are awesome, they're just crazy, I'd never heard anything like it. And I love that first album, and that song's just always a good song to get me hyped up, especially before a show.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there any other sort of stuff that you had?
Yeah, Deftones, My and Summer. Obviously I've always been a big Deftones fan, and I did hear Around the Fur before I heard their first album, but that song always brings back some good memories of me when I was younger, as a teenager, and getting into this music, and then hoping to one day start my own band, Another band was probably a band called Snot. Yeah. They had a song called Stupid, and they were once again just a band that, I hadn't really heard anyone like that. And their singer had this really unique voice. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1998 from a car crash. But it was one of those albums, and I sort of looked up to him and just be like, oh my God, I want to be a singer in a rock band sort of thing, or kind of rock metal. I can't really explain their music, but it's probably a few listeners out there who know who these guys are.
Yeah, I remember them from back in the day.
Yeah, a lot of people don't, and yeah, so when you meet someone who actually does know Snot, it's like, wow, you know. But I'm actually friends with Mikey Dowling now, the guitarist from Snot, on Facebook. He got hold of me, or he got hold of Paul. Just he was a big fan of ours, and I was just like, no, you're not. You're Mikey Dowling from Snot. Like, what?
It's not meant to work like this.
Cool. Yeah. What else was on there? I had stuff like Living End, Second Solution. I used to love, you know, the sound that they first released, that real sort of psychobilly, rockabilly sound. Once again, another band that just didn't sound like anything I had heard at the time. And I remember seeing them at the Big Day Out in 1999, a while ago, and just being like, wow, these guys are awesome, you know, full on energy. And another one would be Slipknot, Eyeless. Another sort of, another band that I just went, holy shit, you know, never heard anything like them, and just, you know, that album that they released, I just wanted to myself be in a band as well, and just, I remember getting that album for Christmas. I was a big fan of Fuel, and, you know, I thought they had some really good hooks. So the song I think I had on my tape was Shimmer. And I actually met the original bass player of Fuel about 3 years ago, and I was in the States. He was the neighbour of a family that we'd gone over to have dinner with, and that my band manager knew. And apparently their neighbour was the old bassist of Fuel, and he came over, and he's just like, man, I love you guys. This is so crazy. And we're just like, what? But we love you. Like, once again, it was kind of like Mikey Dowling, like, what? This is crazy. And we actually went on to spend like a day with him and go to his recording studios in LA, and you know, he took us out to this amazing coffee spot, and it was pretty weird, but cool. It was like I was listening to that band, you know, when I was younger, and now here we are. So
it's, I mean, even for me, like, you had these defining bands when you're growing up, and you're sort of trying to work out what music is, like, as a concept in general, and then trying to work out the genres later on. But it's just like this amazing time of just being so, like, you're just discovering all these amazing things, and you've never experienced them before. As you said, like System of a Down before, and even some of these other bands, you've sort of gone, you know, it's sort of solidifying in your mind, oh, I want to be in a band. But to be able to sort of almost come full circle with so many of these stories. I mean, even just like, you know, Paul at the Axe Attack, you know, now being in a band with him.
Exactly.
And, you know, meeting these guys that you had listened to for so long, years and years ago, have turned around now and have become peers and have said, you know, they're fans of what you do and what you collectively do as a band. It's pretty incredible. It's super cool. Yeah,
it's real cool. But some pinch me moments there going on, but it's wicked.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said before you were listening to, you know, the Axe Attack as one example of where you were getting your music from. But did you have siblings or friends, or how did you sort of get exposed to a lot of these bands and just work out, I guess, what heavy music was and metal and all this sort of stuff?
I had a friend, like a family, with some, a family friend who had come back because he moved to Singapore with his family, like in 92, and we were really close, and they'd come back every Christmas. And so he was a few years older than me, and he started coming back with, like, you know, these massive CD wallets just full of music. And I remember actually getting hold of Tool Anima. I was about 12, I think, and I was just like, wow. You know, I went to high school, and I was listening to this on my Walkman or Discman, and, you know, my friends were into, I don't know, Spice Girls and, you know, all that sort of stuff, S Club 7 or whatever was going on at the time. And, so I was recording a lot of music onto cassette from his CDs. So I think that kind of sparked it. And definitely the Axe Attack. But my dad was a big metaler. He's still a big metaler. But I grew up on a lot of old school metal, Dio, Heaven and Hell, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, all that sort of stuff. So he listened to the Axe Attack quite a bit as well. But I just sort of obviously got into some heavier stuff than he was listening to. But
it's definitely a nice set of surroundings to be around musically. If you've got a dad who loves a bit of old school metal, you've already sort of got a good foundation, and then you sort of just go from there. And it sounds like you've almost got this, you had this yearly ritual of your friend returning from Southeast Asia with all this music and dedicating, which would have taken a long time, dubbing stuff off CDs onto cassettes and just sort of churning through it. So you would have had to really sort of prepare in advance. He's coming back. I've got to get some cassettes and get ready to get this music.
Pretty much, yeah. I'd wait for him to turn up and then be like, all right, what have you got?
When you had these tapes, where did you listen to them? Was it just at home, or sort of out and about, a Walkman or anything like that? Was there particular places that you mainly listened to them?
At home, sort of like on my headphones. I think, if I went on a family trip, I'd listen to the music in the car on my Walkman, because I did have a tape Walkman, and then I got a Discman. And even when they brought out MP3 players, I was still listening to the Discman. And I remember sort of taking it to school as well, like at lunchtimes. I don't know, sometimes I wouldn't even hang out with my friends. I'd just go for a walk and listen to music. It's just something I like to do.
Well, I mean, it definitely makes sense given what you're doing now. It's all sort of fallen into place. Do you still have them? You still got the mixtapes?
I think I do. I think they're obviously back home at my parents' house. I think they're in my wardrobe, maybe in a shoebox or something. But there was heaps of them. There were so many. I don't even know. I think I even started getting to the point where I was taping over some of Mum's old tapes, because my mum's sort of more into sort of easy listening, and I think I actually dubbed over her Hootie and the Blowfish tape.
Oh, look out.
I don't think she even knew, but I think she kind of just, listened to it every now and then. She probably thought she lost it, but I took it, sorry.
Did you have, when you're dubbing over existing tapes, did you find that any of the songs were sort of compromised because you'd just, the song that you'd recorded on the tape might have a little bit of the end of a Hootie and the Blowfish song sort of stuck at the end of a song? So were they sort of, did you have any of those examples? Definitely, yeah. And I mean, given your age around that time, and you said before, you're going to school and you're listening to Tool, and your friends are listening to a completely different type of music at that age, which I guess stereotypically for that age, it's sort of, for you, it would have been a little bit different and not expected. What was happening at that point in time in your life? What was going on around you? And you mentioned before, obviously, a lot of this was inspiration for you to eventually start a band and be in a band yourself. But what was sort of happening in your life around that time when you were starting to really open up your world to music?
Nothing much. I mean, I was a pretty good student, but then I just, started listening to a lot of music, and there was these, there's a few high school bands, and they'd have lunchtime concerts every now and then. I'd always go, and, I loved it. I just felt this rush every time I watched. And even they'd have practices in the music room. I just go in and watch them and stuff, and it just got me into all of a sudden I wanted to learn guitar, and I was in a vocals group, but that was mainly just to get out of class and hang with my friends. I was more sort of I thought I wanted to be a guitarist in a band, but and it was, I think I just felt like I hit 14 and then my life was just completely changed by music, and even going to English class and not paying attention, but my English book's full of lyrics that I've written. Yeah. But hey, it worked out in the end, so that's all good.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I'm having flashbacks for me being at school and just paying zero attention to what was going on. If my mum ever listens to me crap on about this, she'll cringe because there's probably some bad memories from her end. But, you end up down the path of music, so it all does work out. But
yeah,
it's cool. It's cool to see. I mean, a lot of the people that I've spoken to so far are coming from an era where tape trading and things like that were quite popular, especially sort of in the 80s. And I don't know how old you are, but I'm just guessing by the music and sort of the time frames that you're talking about, we're probably a similar age, because growing up for me, especially sort of in my teens, mid-teens, a lot of that sort of American metal was coming out, where, you know, the bands like you mentioned before, Slipknot, sort of just completely tore everyone apart and sort of redefined what metal was at one point in time, and everyone sort of scratching their heads going, what is this? And then from there, I think, you know, obviously, you know, metal's exploded again into the 2000s. But it's interesting just to hear your sort of story, because a lot of other guys, you know, would just be primarily off the radio or trying to dub off vinyl and things like that. And for you, you've got a slightly different story again, where you've got obviously the radio, but you've got a friend who's brought some music back each year, and you've also got a dad who's a metalhead as well, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, and there's still bands on that list that I still listen to, like Deftones. I'm still a massive fan, and like even, you know, Rage Against the Machine, and you know, there's a few bands like, I even had Korn on there, like Korn Clown. So I loved their first album. Yeah. They obviously got a bit too poppy for my liking, but you know, back then they were just, what was it? They had a tape out, like on VHS. What was it called? I can't remember, but it was pretty much them when they were real young, and just their daily shit they do on a daily basis. And I think they were recording Life is Peachy at the time. Right, yeah. It was freaking cool, and I must have watched it like 100 times because I was just like, I want to do that.
Did you have, I mean, you mentioned before, like being at school and a lot of your friends listening to different music, but did you have, apart from, you know, this friend who came every year back home, or your dad sort of having a background and a love of metal, did you have other people around you that you could sort of bounce this love of music off, that had were sort of on a similar playing field to you as far as that sort of taste?
Not until I met my first proper boyfriend when I was 15, and he was a bass player in a band, and he had a bigger music taste than me, I guess. But with rock and metal, he, you know, all of a sudden, a few years into it, but, you know, got me into stuff like Poison the Well and Dillinger Escape Plan, and I remember listening to the Earth Tone 9 UK band, and just shit like that. It was fucking, sorry, language. It was cool. So
you can swear, it's completely fine.
Oh, sweet.
It's really cool, because I think a lot of the things that, you know, we can all relate to is when you're discovering music and you're putting together these sort of compilations, is that you know, you sometimes have other people, you're either on your own. That's a very metal thing. It's a very sort of very isolated sort of feeling when you're growing up, and you're sort of going against the grain, which is part of the appeal to it all. But when you are connecting with other people and finding mutual appreciation for music, it's there's not a lot of rules at that point in time when you're still getting into it. Like, and I'm sure you've seen it over the years as you started to get further into either the local music scene or meeting more people in your travels, that people have got very strong views on what they think a particular genre of music is, or what they think metal is to them, or rock, or just music in general. And sometimes we get a little bit clouded by the segregation of the sounds or the genres. And I think a really cool thing that I'm trying to do with all these stories and from these different people is that just to sort of bring it back and sort of just kind of reignite that feeling that we all got when we first started listening to music and hearing those heavy guitars for the first time and just going, wow, like what on earth is this? This is just next level. And now not that you'd say it at the time, but it's almost like my life's changing. Like it's changed. Like what I don't know what's going on, but this is just incredible and I want more of it.
Yeah. No, I remember that feeling. It was awesome.
Jennie, thank you so much. I love the stories, and I've definitely got this visual in my head of this kid returning from Singapore with a massive CD wallet and just sitting down on the carpet in front of like a tape deck and just trying to dub as many albums as possible. It's so cool.
Oh my God, yep, that's pretty much right.
To learn more about our guest, check out the show notes over at andydowling.net, as well as lord.net.au, where you can hear our brand new album, Fallen Idols. Cheers for listening, and this has been my nod to the old school. Larry, please.